What's happening with the Samurai guys? Isn't there two guys? Aren't they both locked up? Do you know what's happening
They're
now
in
with them?
jail. Yeah, this kind of listening to the Bitcoin sort of podcast set of things here and there. It's really an awkward position
Yeah.
because these guys were incarcerated under the Biden regime, which was really being heavy-handed in how they were viewing crypto businesses. And um, to their, I mean, they could have definitely done things better in how they talked about what they were doing, but talking about something is different than like actually violating law. I think they will say, well, they kind of promoted it as a quasi money laundering mechanism, and technically it did obfuscate, origin of funds. So it did what they set out to do with it.
Mhm.
And whether it was for, increasing privacy amongst, law-abiding citizens or not, that becomes, you know, uh, the use of the tool versus the tool itself. So like, do you sue the baseball bat manufacturer when somebody like takes a baseball bat and like clubs somebody else on the head?
Definitely
No.
not.
so so while they were incarcerated and I think kind of pressured to take a plea agreement that would have limited their amount of jail time under the Biden regime and under Gary Gensler's sort of SEC uh, regime, they kind of got the short end. They kind of, in my mind, they did. And with these new stances being kind of uh, openly put forward by the administration and the agencies, I think, in my mind, they have a really good case to being having clemency in their case.
Hmm.
But technically, that's not the case. We could look at things like Ross Ulbricht with the his release from prison. He did the that black market.
Silk
What was it
Road.
called? Silk Road, right? So it's like, where do we go with all of that? Um, and you know, we'll see what happens with it. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, I personally think that they should revisit their case, and given the current kind of understanding and demeanor and where all this stuff is going, they should be reconsidered. But again, that's my as a software developer, I don't want to have like
Right.
potential stuff like that hanging over my head,
Right.
right?
Yeah. It makes sense
So
because, right, people are going to be afraid to create software, but also maybe people see that the Samurai devs being locked up and now they're going to be extra cautious creating software, being anonymous. Maybe some tools will come out, some strategies, and it will create a new avenue for developers to make things anonymous. Maybe that will become like some sort of new standard.
potentially, you know, I think if you want to take a purist approach, you have to say, look, if software is free speech and free speech is protected, then I can write whatever
Right.
software I want because it's free speech. And while we kind of run under the premise that the United States has free speech, we find that people get conditioned to self-censor,
Yeah.
right? I mean, how many people, like, when you see something on YouTube or something, they'll say things like, "Oh, that person was unalived."
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
it's like, what, are you afraid to say dead or
Yeah.
killed or murdered?
What the hell does that
It's like
mean?
that's that. Yeah, that's the like. Well, and then they'll say, "Well, I'm trying to like not be banned by the algorithms."
Yep.
Well, but that's censorship.
Yep.
it's like
Yep.
it's like so by I mean, and we saw, like, through the whole COVID epidemic, right? Like, people were using different words for things just because of fear of being banned, or the societal sort of, temperament was shifting,
Yep.
and we wanted to be like extra sensitive in ways. but at the end of the day, that comes across, that's self-censoring. That's censorship that has won and been rooted in people's behaviors. And to me, that in itself is a danger. So
Yeah, it's pressure. You know, you're getting pressured
yep.
by an outcome, and then you'll change your ways. But not only that, so you say maybe we have free speech, but we're always altering, changing, and shaving it all because now
Mm-hmm.
you have free speech, but now there's something called hate speech. You know,
Yeah.
I hate your speech, right? Well, I hate your speech. So we could define these things, hate speech. Well, that's hate speech. Well, nah, I don't really think that doesn't offend me. That's not hate speech, but it might offend the next guy. Oh, that's hate speech, you know? So it's just crazy, slippery slope, gray area where it's either free speech or not free speech.
Yeah. I was talking to my wife not too long ago. I'm like, I'm noticing that like in public broadcasting sort of modes, like mainstream media, like people are dropping the F bomb here and there. And that would have never flown like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? It's like, and now president dropped the F bomb. So it's like, in a press conference or something like that. So it's like, you know, uh, okay, so societal norms and taboos shift
They
over
do.
time.
They do.
And I think you judge things based on the context of norms in society and in culture. And that does shift. So to judge like, whether, if the president says something and it's offensive, would have been deemed as offensive in the late 1800s, doesn't necessarily mean it should be like, viewed that way today.
Mhm.
However, it's like when you have a system of control of the channels of media and you sense that if you express things in a certain way, you're going to get like that channel's going to get cut off, then that in my mind that's a First Amendment oppression, and that you don't really have true freedom of speech.
Yeah.
What the fact that that society at large tolerates it is like a separate question.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.